All right, guys, so if you're an entrepreneur, CEO, business owner, or an aspiring one, you might be wondering where the heck to start. So my name's Kate Simon. I coach CEOs, leaders, and entrepreneurs all around the country and run a team of 18 coaches and hundreds of coaching clients. But my story wasn't always that. In fact, I'm gonna share with you guys today a piece of what I believe are some of the most important components I learned early on when I was a solo independent entrepreneur and how that plays into my success today. So you might be wondering, as an entrepreneur, where the heck do you start? What sort of advantages do you need? What sort of resources do you need? And you might be in this position where you're looking for the perfect storm in order to lean into that opportunity or take action. And what I'm gonna share with you guys today is really pieces of my story that ended up being some of the biggest life lessons that I've learned to date, but ultimately how it all started by not really having much of a plan at all. So I'll give you a quick background story here. I started my career here in Metro Detroit at 19 years old. I became a licensed real estate agent, had a lot of success on our local team in this area, Glover Agency, for a couple years. And as soon as I earned my first company award, Rookie of the Year, I decided that that made me somehow credible to move all the way across the country to Malibu, California, get my real estate license out there and start selling. If you're from California, you're probably laughing, thinking to yourself, yeah, it's incredibly hard to start a business out there. So I'm gonna share with you guys what I did in order to make it out there in California and ultimately thrive. All right, guys, so first things first, I had a very small amount of runway, which means I didn't have the time to explore a bunch of different options in order to succeed. I knew right away that I had to get obsessed with lead generation. Nothing in my business mattered until I knew how to acquire clients, how to improve my skills enough to acquire clients, and ultimately get my first few paychecks out there so that I could plan my business accordingly after that. So if you're wondering how to start over and you're wondering how to start from scratch as an entrepreneur, there is absolutely nothing you need to be focusing on more than what your client acquisition plan is. So for me, what that looked like is every single day, I put my shoes on, I put my name badge on from the brokerage that I worked with, and I door knocked hundreds of houses every single day, talking to 55 to 60 people every single day, asking them who they knew that was looking to buy or sell. And then on top of that, what I would do on weekends is work 2 to 3 open houses, either 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, or 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. I was obsessed with finding my next client until I mastered that part of the process. Now, I wanna add this caveat that when I'm coaching other leaders or entrepreneurs and CEOs, there's a lot of different things that can be exciting about that role, and there's a lot of creative things people wanna do. They wanna design their brand, they wanna get their YouTube channel started, they wanna do all of these different things that actually don't bring them clients right now, and that is one of the first mistakes we see with entrepreneurs who ultimately don't make it. They're not prioritizing the right activities and in the right order. So I cannot stress this enough, regardless of what industry you're in, if you're looking to start a business or start over from scratch in a different market, you have to become obsessed with lead acquisition, lead generation, and everything involved with finding your next client. In our world, what that means is, having a disciplined schedule where you are lead generating every day. It also means having some form of a lead follow-up protocol that you're following. Ultimately, what this means is that you have to become obsessed with how you're gonna acquire your next client so that you can buy yourself more time to figure this out. All right, so the next thing I did is I milked every single win for what it was worth and then some. Now, here's what that looks like. Every single time I had a win or I got an offer accepted on a house or I sold a house, I would ask myself, what are all the ways in which I can use this win to promote to future clients and to validate that I'm the person that they wanna work with. So don't dismiss the small wins that you have. Don't dismiss the people who tell you that, you're great at follow-up and your presentation is key. Every single piece of positive feedback or evidence that you have in your business that this is working, you should be finding a way to showcase that and put it out there for all of your future customers to see. What you're really doing there is building a track record of success, of showing people that what you do works and you've helped other people just like them do the same thing. So as I'm sure you guys can imagine, there was a lot of failures along the way. There was a lot of days where I honestly didn't know when I was gonna get my next deal. There was a lot of sleepless nights. I'll have to share with you guys on another video the amount of times that I would toss and turn at night and crunch the numbers and figure out how many days I actually had to make this opportunity work. But along the way, there's a lot of failures too. And I didn't have the luxury to wallow in the feelings of the failures. I had to get super laser focused on why I failed at something and have a plan of action to learn from it. And so instead of seeing a failure as a setback, I saw it as an opportunity to change something and make sure that I never made the same mistake again. So a couple questions I would ask myself there is, if I'm experiencing a problem, whether it's with a client or, anything of the sort, I would ask myself, is this an isolated incident, or is there a likelihood that something like this could happen again? I will then ask myself, how did we get here? What did I do or not do that led to this problem? And then third, I'll ask myself, if I had to put a system together or a process together or a checklist or an automated thing together to prevent this from happening again, what would that look like? Now, early on, you are the system, okay? Like there is no delegating when you're not overwhelmed with leads. And it helps to have that mindset right away of every single time you hit a roadblock, every single time something doesn't go your way, to sit and reflect on what you can do differently in the future so that you don't make the same mistakes again. Now, this can be hard for people because when you get into business, you pour your heart and soul into what you're doing. In fact, a lot of people build brands based around their name. You could have a company that is somebody's first and last name or last name, group or something like that. So it becomes really personal because they haven't actually differentiated in their mind the difference between the business that they are running and them as a human being. And so what really blocks people from being able to receive that feedback and see that feedback is separating themselves and their own worth from the performance of the business. Now, by the way, this is actually why a lot of entrepreneurs succeed, because they tie in their identity so closely with their results. But this could also be a really dangerous trap if you're in a little bit of a slump in your business and you could make it too personal, make it about you, and ultimately, you don't want to build a business from a negative place. So really what I'm trying to say here is if you're going to be a solo entrepreneur, you have to be committed to a high degree of self-awareness so that you can really sit and remove yourself from the emotion of a given situation or emotion of a failure and ask yourself, what could I do different in the future so that this never happens again? So the next thing that I did, and it goes really close with the previous point here, is that I took responsibility for everything. Again, I didn't have the luxury to say, oh, it was so-and-so's fault. Oh, it was this lead's fault. Oh, it was this broker's fault. I didn't have the luxury to point the finger because I knew that if I was pointing the finger at something or someone else out there as to why I wasn't succeeding, I had no power to change that. So I took responsibility for absolutely everything I could every step of the way. That doesn't mean that it was easy, but when I was able to take responsibility for everything that was going well or everything that was not going well, which at that time was quite a few things, it put me in a position to actually do something to change it. See, when we're in a position where we're saying that we're not performing because of something or someone else, or we're not succeeding because of X, that means that we'll never succeed unless X decides to fall in line or do whatever it is that we want to do. I didn't like those odds. I didn't like the thought that I had to sit and wait for the stars to align around me. And so how I got around that was taking really my unfair share of responsibility in a lot of these different problems that were occurring around me so that I could totally own the solution and take whatever action I needed to take in order to survive another month out there. All right, so there's a couple other things that you might not expect that I did in order to really stay focused on what I needed to do every single day in order to succeed. And the first thing I did was I took a total hiatus from social media for a solid, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years, but I was completely off Facebook for 2 to 3 years. Now, in today's day and age, I would say that Facebook actually is used for business quite a lot. So I'm not necessarily recommending that you do that. But the reason I took a break from Facebook was because, again, I didn't have the luxury to let my attention drift for any second of the day from what I was committed to doing. I needed to make money, and I needed to make money like yesterday. So I didn't have time to scroll and see what somebody thought about a politician, who just went to Jamaica or anything like that. I had to stay completely focused on the task ahead, which was how do I stay here for another month? So what that really comes down to is like, what do you have in your world right now that is distracting you from what's most important? And how do you take a break from that? How do you pause those distractions for a while to bet on yourself and give yourself the best chance to succeed? And that's ultimately the question that all of us have to ask ourselves is to, what is pulling my attention away and keeping me where I'm at? And what would my life look like if I took a break from this right now and came back to it in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, once I've gone all in on what this passion is that I'm looking to pursue? Next, you might be wondering, well, Kate, if you're not scrolling social media, what exactly were you putting into your mind every day? And I would be, again, I would say borderline obsessed with audiobooks, with podcasts, with anything that I could keep in my ears almost at all times, apart from when I was doing lead generation, because the thoughts and the fears of failure were so strong for me out there because my safety net, there was no safety net. My thoughts and fears were so loud and so strong that I had to drown them out with something more positive. I had to replace every single negative thought I had, every single fear that I wouldn't make it, with something of positive potential on why I would make it. And for a while, I mean, I was blowing through audiobooks every single week, podcasts. I mean, it was the amount of positive content I was consuming on a regular basis was, enormous. But that's because the fears that were going into my mind on a regular basis were also enormous. So what I would encourage every single person to do is when you're out there looking to start your own business, you have to really safeguard your mind and be honest about the thoughts that are crossing your mind. And if you're having more negative than positive thoughts, that's okay. That's normal. I think there's a lot of fear around starting businesses and being an entrepreneur. And take corrective action to really work on your mindset, really work on asking yourself what you need to believe on a regular basis in order to succeed. And if you can stay obsessed with that forward thought pattern, the scary thoughts aren't going to pull you down, and you'll have a better chance of succeeding in the long run. All right, so the next thing I did, and again, I can relate to all of you when you're an entrepreneur and you're wondering like, which path to take, which class should I take, which coach should I hire? Like, it's very easy to outsource the answer to what you need to do to succeed. And I think it's really important that we all understand that like, we know what to do. It is the hard work, right? Like that, the path forward is the hard work. It's not joining a different company or getting different branding or starting a YouTube channel. Like that is not the secret to success. The secret to success is going to be the mundane things that you know you need to do every single day. And so what I did with this realization was I blocked out any and all noise that had to do with the people around me succeeding. Now, that doesn't mean I wasn't happy for them. I mean, I worked with a lot of high performance agents out there that were selling multi-million-dollar houses. They were, living their best life in Southern California, as they should. They've earned it, right? But if I wasn't careful, I would find myself stuck, longing for that, wanting that, and focused on all the wrong things instead of asking myself, what do I need to do today to get the absolute most out of this day? And I would ask myself that question every single day, over and over and over again, and only take action on the things I knew that I could control and I knew would have a positive impact on where I wanted to go. And so how that translates to you guys is identify, for whatever industry you're in, wherever you're looking to start a business, what are the core leading factors that if you track these, if you study these, the rest of the business will figure itself out. Now, in my industry, that leading factor was my skills, my actual sales skills on how I could communicate with my clients. And then of course it was lead generation. I knew that I could have a less than perfect brand or a less than perfect listing appointment. I knew that none of those things were as important as me focusing on my lead generation every single day, focusing on my skills, and I would say my mindset as well. And so when you're starting out, I would really encourage you to water it down to the 3 or 5, it's probably not more than 5, by the way, the 3 to 5 most important things that determine your success, and make sure every single day is filled with those things before anything else. All right, guys, so this next point here, this really should go without saying, but what I want to share with you guys is at that point in my career, in my life, for where the stakes were, I was willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. I had a small amount of money. I had very little experience. I had no database. I had no budget for marketing, mailers, anything like that. The only thing I had was my work ethic, and I had to be willing to do whatever it takes. And so what that looked like for me is I would wake up every single morning in California at 4:30 in the morning. By the way, I'm not trying to glamorize this like early morning routine. To be clear, I would have much rather slept in, but I didn't have that luxury. I had to start my day at 4:30 in the morning. I coached agents on the East Coast, so it was 7:30 in the morning their time, for the first 3 hours of the day. And by 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, I was able to start getting ready, start my day, and then I would go work on those action items that I talked to you guys about on the previous point. So guys, the reason this is important right now is because ultimately, like, we live in a very digital age, and especially with AI, it can get very easy to curate an image of success online without actually having to do the work. And so when we have clients come through our company today, we're of course going to ask them the question of, all right, Kate, what are your goals? How much money do you want to make? You know, what are some of your financial goals or business aspiration goals that we can help coach you to? And you know, they've thought a lot about their plan, and they tell us all the success that they want to have, which is great. I love that. I love a clear vision. But when I ask them the question of, okay, great, and what are you willing to do in order to do that? It comes down to, well, I'm not really a morning person. Well, I hate rejection. Well, I got bored, so I left. Well, I have plans this weekend. And that's fine. If you don't have to work for a living, that's fine. Go ahead and party on the weekends. But I would really ask yourself, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and build something that's so much better than what's out there right now, do you think that fits in a 25 to 40 hour work week? Or do you think that's a 40+ hour work week? Of course, it's a rhetorical question, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's 40+ hours. And if you're unwilling to make that kind of sacrifice for a short period of time, just get a job, work for somebody else. That's okay. In fact, there's nothing wrong with partnering with somebody else that allows you to have that work-life balance. But I'm here to tell you, if you're looking to be a solo entrepreneur, run your own business, build something from the ground up, this is not a 9-to-5 job. And so one of my last points here, the second to last point, is that I was willing to do whatever it took to succeed. And I had in my mind that if I was ultimately going to fail in Southern California and move all the way back to gorgeous Metro Detroit, I was going to do it with no money to my name, with no stones unturned. And I was going to be able to say that I did absolutely everything I could to succeed. Now, by the way, of all the tips out there, of all the tricks out there, of all the skills you can learn, of all the CRMs you can purchase, I actually believe that is the most important skill to succeed in any self-employed business. If you don't have that belief, if you don't have that ability to work even when you don't feel like it, forget it. Your time in any sort of entrepreneurial or self-employed business is going to be limited. Because even if you do get your foothold in this industry, whatever industry you're in, you have to understand that there's going to be new people that come behind you that are willing to do whatever it takes. And so if you're not, step aside and let the people who are willing to live and die by their goals actually make headway and take market share. The last point here, guys, and I know I talk about this all the time in my videos, so if you're a follower already, which by the way, thank you so much for following, you've heard this before, but I was obsessed with surrounding myself with people who have done it and are doing it better than me. Now, what that might look like to you is aligning with a broker, a leader, a coach, or somebody that you might have to pay for, or what that means is, if you're in an office environment like I was, right? I worked in a real estate office. I'm not hanging out with the other agents who are struggling. I'm hanging out with the agents who are selling 40, 50, 60 houses a year, who are living fantastic lives, going to Hawaii in their free time and buying investment properties every quarter. Now, to be clear, I was not confused about the fact that I was not one of them, but I was super clear that if I wanted to hang around people who were also struggling, that I would continue to struggle. So I was very unapologetic about sitting at tables that maybe right away I didn't belong at, or being in rooms that maybe I haven't quite earned the right to be there, because I knew that over time, if I surrounded myself with people who were doing more or operating at a level that I eventually wanted to operate at, I had no choice but to rise to that occasion and figure out how to fit in with that crowd, which ultimately I ended up doing. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to hearing a little bit of my story and ultimately what some of those key pillars were that helped me succeed in a market against all odds. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I share all things leadership that I've learned along the way and helping coach CEOs, owners, and entrepreneurs to their success. And of course, like my video, drop a comment below and tell me which one of these you're excited to implement.